YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. The time has come. L-39 arrows, gorgeous, amazing plane, rated for 3S, but I have a dirty little secret in my pocket and in the canopy. 1500 4S. We're gonna see if this thing catches on fire in a poof of flames. It is also windy, which means I have to launch that way. We have some tall grass to catch the plane. If it doesn't work out as good as I want it to, throttle cuts off. And without further ado, checking my stabilizer. Now checking the auto leveling, which is part of the vector included in this model. So I'm gonna launch. The vector does allow it to go down a little bit more than I want, and the CG is a little bit more nose heavy. So we may have a slight adjustment on our elevator trim. So I'm just gonna launch a little bit nose up, and I'm gonna try for full throttle real quick before I launch. Didn't catch on fire, but it sounds a lot better. Oh yeah. Yeah, out of the auto leveling, just in stabilize mode. That's 50% throttle, looks a lot better in the sun, guys. Oh yes. Definitely more nose heavy. Oh, it's got the ups I wanted it to have in the first place. Couple more clicks of trim. Holy cow, that thing looks so good. That's 30% throttle, 10% throttle. Look at it getting tossed around. That's what I wanted the first time we flew it. You guys hear the beeping? That's just the voltage alarm. Camera crew is gonna move up here by me as soon as you can. We're gonna do bull flying today, a little bit. Look how persistent that thing looks. There's some turbulent air out there, folks. But man, that looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So now I gotta say, one of our concerns with this plane, and you'll see, depending on what order we put these videos, you may not see it in the order that we flew. This is our third flight. It's also the first flight we did with 4S, but I gotta say, the power is in your hands, folks. Get one of these RC Hackers 4S's. I hope it doesn't catch on fire. If it does, you'll know from our videos. We're gonna take one for the team here, because I'm gonna tell you right now, this thing is flying amazing on 4S. No problem so far. I'm backing off the throttle, relaxing. Don't worry, it's not about to crash. Unless I do something stupid, which could always happen. That's 30% throttle. We're gonna go right through the opening here. A lot of turbulence there as I pass the threshold. And then up and over. And guys, if you didn't know what we were using an AR410. That's right, 4 channels of deliciousness is all you need to have this great flight performance. And I'm just gonna warn you right now, your temptation is add rudder, your temptation is gonna be put in a 630, add some flaperons, or possibly even some inboard flaps. I'm just gonna tell you right now, you'll make this thing fly like a dog, I bet, because it is nice and light. It's actually probably just a touch heavier than I would make it for a simple belly lander, but it flies so dang good. How do you complain? Reminds me of the T-33, which is also an Arrows product. One thing I definitely wish they would have done is a rudder with a forward mounted servo, because I feel like it would be good for CG, but you'd have to have a linkage that sticks out the back of the fuse. Also, you do have to glue the horizontal stabilizer in. It's held down by the vertical stabilizer, which we'll review in our Unbox Build radio setup. If you haven't seen that video, it should publish 1 minute before this flight. So as you can see, this thing is just doing it great on 4S. I am just kind of giving bursts of throttle, trying to be hypersensitive to catching my plane on fire. But I'm gonna tell you this right now, I love the way it's flying. I love having the extra persistence and power, and differential on the throttle stick makes a big differential in speed. On 3S, one thing you'll notice about this plane is that you are riding the stick at 100% throttle in order to get away from trouble. And I'm gonna say this right now, I just about stalled it into the tall grass there because of a downdraft. I should have known better, but at the same time, guys, we're here to show you what the planes can do and not necessarily just have an easy peasy flight. We do that on second thoughts.
Well,
this is not a second thought.
Sorry, if people are looking at the wind, we're probably 8 to 10 with gusts.
More than that, way more than that. Are you kidding me? We're at like 20 right now behind us, but the wind is blocked by the house. Right into the wind here, guys. almost no throttle, probably 8%, 10%, 15%. And look, it's still flying. Okay, into the throttle hard, just to show you the ups that you won't get if you fly on 3S. But I'm gonna tell you this, you don't need the ups, it's just one more dimension that you're gonna want. And definitely feeling a lot more movement in the air, in the atmosphere. I need you back over here, camera crew. So the camera crew has this trick she likes to play on me, and she will wander around the runway, and I have no clue where she is. The next thing you know, I'm blocking the camera crew. So we have certain spots we try to stand. There is manned aircraft at low altitude over there. What the heck is he doing? See that right behind me? That guy's way low. So I'm gonna be very careful and respectful of that. Obviously, we're thousands of feet away. It's absolutely new issue for safety at this moment. I'm gonna do a loop. That's one thing you're gonna have. Oh, that's our timer. Now, other thing is I do have a voltage alarm, just to be clear, but the voltage alarm is probably going to take us for the first saggy cell, okay? So I just elapsed. This is a bigger pack by 200 milliamp hours per cell. And I also have more cells, which means that I can be a little bit lower on the throttle position. So I think we're gonna get upwards of 1 minute longer flight time. Also, you notice the first time I really rode the throttle hard, you notice that we had basically a lapse and we were beeping. That's at 3.3 volts DC. Not uncommon on an initial launch, but I've always thought it was strange how you put a voltage alarm and you'll get that sag, that sink on an initial flight. Right when you first take off. Where's the manned aircraft going?
He's circling, but he's turning back.
Okay, to the center of the runway,
away.
please. Perfect. Guys, I'm gonna set up for a landing just in case he decides to do something crazy. Now, I don't have wheels, so I can't land on my wheels and then just go back up. It's gonna be a belly land. But I also wanna do some cool more passes. Love the way this plane flies. Love the power of 4S. I think this thing really needs to just get rated for 4S because the ESC is about the size of half of my pinky finger. It's very small. And the thing is, I'm gonna tell you right now, is you want 4S. This thing is so much more fun, which reminds me of the BAE Hawk and also reminds me of the T-33, which did good on 3S, but you could throw a 4S in there, I think. I'm trying to remember on that. What was the other one? The Viper.
The Viper.
The little Viper in the 50. Awesome plane, folks. But I'm gonna tell you something. You want the power. Power is what saves lives in airplanes. And you get around, there's our beeping. I'm gonna get out of throttle and glide. Now I'm gonna give it some kisses of throttle just to get us where we want. I wanna land with the runway, but you'll notice the wind is very much at a 90. That's a dangerous condition for a belly lander, and I'll tell you why. Because you don't have a rudder, folks. Couple kisses of throttle, and then just get it down. Right there for us to take a look at. Throttle cuts on, that was 2 minutes and 26, plus 5 is 7.5 minutes, and we aren't totally dead. I could launch this again, but I'd have to go around and very conservatively take my landing. Cam crew, please. So, looking at this plane, let's show you where I rode the battery. Did admittedly have a couple of clicks of trim to make the CG work out, but I am right at the edge. Earlier, the 1300 was centered right on that strap. Now, you can run your strap the other direction, but I don't know if this strap would be long enough then to work, okay? Because it has to reach from here to there. And then it would not maybe have enough height. The Vector works fine. 3 channels of controls, and that's how good it looks, guys. Amazing. We have seen other planes that are of similar construction that fly half as good as this. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you definitely don't need the NX-10 to make this plane work, but paired up with the NX-10 and a quality receiver, you're gonna have a great experience with this plane. And so far, so good. Camera crew, if you can just hold that direction. Thank you. If you were to take off this wing, you could touch the electronic speed control. It sits right here. Keep your ventilation paths open. It's big and it's covered in heat shrink, and it could cause some problems in terms of ventilation, and don't let your wires get sucked in or do something stupid there. So as you're assembling the wing, pay special attention to that. This thing does not need flaps to land. It does land a little bit fast. L-39s will bite you, especially if they're nose heavy, when you're coming into land, they will push that nose down. But you do have plenty of elevator throw on this, and just look where my elevators are. See if you can get that to focus so they can see the differential in the position. Is that a good angle?
Yes.
You see it sticking up just a little bit, probably 2 millimeters from center up. That's perfect in this application. And by the way, let's go into the shade, because the shade is going to help us to show you my trim on the elevator. I didn't have trim on rudder because there's no rudder, but I do have mixes to give us aileron roll in the rudder stick. But we also mixed out our rudder because we're using the rudder for our mode. So auto leveling. Did you show them? Can they see?
Hold on a second. Yep.
Where's the trim? Describe it. You got to remember, like if they can't see, they're going to have you verbally say it.
Your elevator trim is over here, right?
Where's the elevator stick? Touch it. Move it. Okay, see? Okay, now double check where it is.
So your trim is down.
Where?
There. Almost, I don't know, 3/4 of the way to the bottom.
Guys, it's 3/4 of the way to the bottom. The number is -64.
Oh, I can't read the number.
The camera crew doesn't always know what I'm looking at when I'm talking about stuff, but when you make trim adjustments on the stick, it's always in line with the stick. Okay, so this would be for the aileron, so it's down here, so you can see we have 0 there. We have 0 on the rudder, but of course the rudder is just tied to the ailerons. So that's how my brain can continue to give me a little bit of a yaw authority, even though it's really not a yaw authority. Now, I did have a thought on this plane, and the thought was, if one of you wanted to add a rudder, first of all, it would be quite easy, but just keeping in mind, if you use a bigger battery, if you add some weight behind the center of gravity, it's not going to be a huge problem, especially if you're doing a 3.5 gram servo. You could do a 9 gram servo, it'd probably be fine, but you have to remember you also have a linkage that's made of steel or aluminum or something that's heavy, so keep that as short as possible. Also, you can hide it in the silver, or you could hide it underneath your choice of your country's labels, which would be pretty cool. So if you mounted it here or here, you'd be fine, but just keep in mind, you're also gonna have to get that wire through, and just keep in mind, show them through the back. You see me there?
Oh yeah.
So there's not that much material on the top. And there's a reason that the manufacturers leave out rudders, because sometimes on these planes, the rudders tend to roll the plane more than you expect anyway. So you have to mix in some contrary ailerons. It's very easy to do it, and you can get even the most roly-poly plane. Like the Airbus A380 was roly-poly as heck because of the angle of the vertical stabilizer. And so I had lots of contrary rudder, but you could turn that thing flat if you wanted with your rudder. Also, there was landing gear on that plane. No landing gear means that you're not getting as much advantage because you don't have the ground handling as well as your rudder. So I think in terms of quality of build, in terms of fun factor, in terms of fit and finish, this plane is, I don't want to say second to none, because it is second to none. Not that it isn't second to none. It's not second to none because there's better planes. But this plane in this size class is very well done. 50 millimeter EDF is a small size class. There's not a ton of planes in that. I think we have in that category maybe like 10 planes that we've done over the years. Maybe. We had a couple F-18, F-16s. We've done, and they were both good, but they were, you know, kind of the same scenario. They called out a 3S, but then you throw a 4S and it's amazing. So I'm just going to tell you right now, the big thing that they got wrong on this plane is telling you to use a 3S. If you use 3S, you're going to have a nice scale flight performance, but you're not going to fly it in wind like this, because what's going to happen is you're going to be going along and the wind is going to smack you into the ground. So just give yourself a little bit more mistakes high. Be wary of turbulence over the tops of these trees and things like that when you get into some thermal action or rotor. And I would say that really, if you've got a 4S that's in a similar size, then you're going to be golden. However, it definitely feels more nose heavy, even on the front and back holes. I'm just going to leave that there on the front and back marks. This would be better if it was pushed back a little bit more. And if you try to put a 2200 4S in there, I'm just going to tell you this right now. I bet the plane would be fine, but you're going to have that all the way back, which means you're going to have to reorganize your receiver. Do not give up your throughput of air. You want to get this thing cooled inside, okay? So also very happy with the trim. livery on this. It looks really nice, but the black definitely does disappear toward twilight up against a tree line that's nice and dark green like what we've got here. If yours aren't green, maybe it's fall time. By the time you're looking at purchasing one of these, you'll pop against a yellow backdrop. And yes, it's still visible, but with the absence of LEDs, you're not going to see it as good as you might want. But there again, it's pretty easy omnidirectional landing capabilities because you're not having to necessarily always line up with a runway. The only reason we have to line up with the runway right now is because we have our tall grass that would be cut for hay this time of year usually. But that's going to get cut for hay over Labor Day weekend, I think, or something like that. And then it'll be gone. And then we can omnidirectionally land belly landers. So lots of thoughts on this plane. Very good plane. I definitely highly recommend it. Guys, we try not to do like buy this plane because it's the best plane ever. We don't do the best, fastest, cheapest, greenest, bluest. That's a bunch of BS, just a waste of your time. This plane is very good. You're going to enjoy it. It does have limitations. Obviously no LEDs, the dark livery. Pick the color that's going to pop the most for you because this helps a little bit, okay? That's why we ended up with this particular icon, whatever you want to decal.
Country symbol scheme.
Yeah, we kind of weren't picking based on, you know, geopolitical wars and things like that. We just don't want to be in the middle of that crap because we have a worldwide audience. I'm just going to say war is pretty terrible no matter where you are or who's fighting it. I don't ever want to be involved with one, but we probably will be someday in our lives. I hope not. But if we do, I still want this to be popping for color, okay? Because this is dark. Keep that in mind. Honestly, I kind of wish they had a USA flag because it would have been the most vibrant colors that we could get.
The silver was really good today in the sun, at least from a filming perspective.
Oh, the color in daylight was perfect.
Yeah.
I could see great. I could tell exactly where I was. Very high differential and contrast for top to bottom. I like the size. It's easy to see. It looks dang good. Scale lines are beautiful. I have no problem with a non-clear canopy. Clear canopies are not necessarily always what you want on a simpler plane because they weigh a lot more and they're more complex and they break easy. So I actually have no problem with this. It would have been kind of cool to see these lines painted, but there again, you can always add those details. But if that matched in this gray color was just the backdrop of where the glass would be, or better yet, a black and then like match the livery, that'd be sweet. But I know jigging that would be expensive and probably add some money to the expense of this build. And so I don't necessarily want these manufacturers to make extra complexity where it doesn't really give us that maximum value. If a manufacturer was going to improve this plane, I would insist on rudder first, inboard flaps third, and LEDs second. Rudder would improve all the flight characteristics. It'd be more fun to fly, and it would help you get out of trouble when you're in a flat, you know, like basically a knife edge. If you do a knife edge at too slow a speed on this plane, you're going to lose your plane because you won't necessarily have time to make the maneuver you want. If you have a rudder, you can kind of control the nose to keep that nice, clean, crisp line that we all want on a knife edge. And that's a big part of flying jets. But at the same time, a big part of flying jets is just fast. Also, there is a bit of a thrust angle issue on this model, and it might be something that we could correct by shimming the actual horizontal stabilizer, because I noticed that in high throttle conditions, again, it could be a function of the heavier battery. If you could get that back a little bit further, I think you could resolve it by getting rid of the trim, becoming a little bit more tail heavy, and you wouldn't notice that upward movement when you give high throttle. But again, it is a belly lander. It's well designed. It works well. But there's going to be some pilots that are picky about that. And we do that here on this channel, is we point out the things that somebody that's picky might notice. Because what good is it watching somebody say how amazing everything is and never pointing out the problems? This plastic reinforcement is very good. I didn't think a thing of it, but guess what? That's going to be the lowest point, even lower. This is plastic, plastic, plastic. Guess what? Plastic, plastic. Huge. If you have to land on runway on accident or purposefully, or you get shifted onto the runway from the grass, you're going to tend to stand a better chance at success with less damage. But guess what? Silver, 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 silver. One of the hardest colors to touch up because they never seem to match. However, if you get yourself a Sharpie with a silver tip, it will touch up that type of damage very quick and easy, and the solvent will break the paint down and they'll mix. But you're never gonna have a perfect match. We can never get silver to match. It seems like it'd be easy, but it's not.
You have to have 50 shades of silver.
Exactly. So that being said, guys, amazing plane, minimal complaints on a very good platform. And the camera crew has a question.
I think, well, in this size class and stuff, people are going to ask, is it a first, second, third? I mean,
First,
like,
second,
where
third.
does this fall in your...
You know, to be honest with you, I think the Viper Jet, I think this, both from Arrows, just, you know, for easy comparison, would be, you know, in the second or third area. But remember, power saves lives. Even though 4S is going to wear out your power system quicker, it's going to wear out your motor quicker, it's going to potentially pop a fan quicker, you're going to have a better flight experience. So I would fly it on 3S, give yourself a wide breath, make sure you have a place to land it with some tall grass like what we've got here in case you come in and you're like, I just feel like I'm going to lose it and it's going to stall. This thing will tip on you bad. But guess what? So does a Viper Jet. If you get that thing too slow, it will tip on you. However, we didn't have a big problem with the 50. I'm thinking more in terms of the 70 and the 90 that we've had experience with. And those things you come in, and if you try to flare them, boom, you're going to tip. Just fly it into the ground. Fly, 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 ground, slide. Yeah. You don't need to slow it down because you're not worried about trying to keep your retracts or your fixed landing gear from ripping out of the foam, okay? So I don't think it's a problem. Also, I'm just going to say, when you have to land with like a 90-degree crosswind, which is basically what we've got here relative to the runway, it's between 80 and 90 or 90 and 110, then that makes it really hard because you have no clean yaw control. You've got roll authority. So roll plus elevator gives you some yaw, but you have to get the angles. So you're forced to cross control without a cross control. That's part of the reason why crosswind landings are not ideal on belly landers that don't have a rudder. So what you would normally do is you would just say, okay, so the wind's going this way. I'm going to fly that way for landing. Well, where are you going to land up here? We don't have enough distance. Right. You could probably bring it in here and try to touch down, but then you have a void, and it's the last thing you want to do is get into ground effect and then go crest the hill, because then you're going to go out of ground effect and stall and crash. That's why I don't ground effect over this hill here, because it drops so much.
That makes sense. Okay. So
for those of you flying at a big field, it's going to be no problem, even a schoolyard or whatever. Now, that being said, beautiful plane. We do have footage of 3S. We have 2 flights of them in a beautiful sunset with beautiful clouds and very dead calm still. If you're flying this in the stillness of evening right before sunset, you're going to love it. It's going to be crispy and delicious and smooth. But the thing is, if you do it with a 4S, it's going to be exciting and crispy and delicious and smooth. So you're just going to get more flavor for every bite. And I'm going to tell you this plane is amazing. I really like it. It's not an overly complex plane. It's not going to be an overly expensive plane. The livery and finish is nice. You do not have to apply all the decals. You just pick your country decal.
Yeah. So
and you can actually do different countries top and bottom if you want to have a higher contrast, but I just thought that might be kind of goofy. And this yellow and blue just popped the most because you had the largest outline. They were the biggest ones. Mm-hmm. So very, very, very cool. Oh, and I cheated also on my decals. I put the big ones down here, and I put the middle ones here, and I put the smallest ones there. I think they wanted the smallest ones on the top and the bigger middle ones on the tail. You can do whatever you want there, though.
And there are
fits.
Directions for applying the decals.
But they don't tell you what countries they are.
No.
So we had to look them up because we were trying to figure out the best color and pop, and then we ultimately ended up with the Ukraine ones. So that being said, absolutely love this plane. Love the way it went together. It was a pretty easy build, a little bit of glue involved here. And you guys will see that if you want to check it out in the 1 minute before this video publication, which was the unbox build radio setup. You can see all the details and then how we mixed out the rudder so that we could use that 4th channel, which would normally be designated for the rudder to use for our mode, because this is a vector, okay? Which means we don't need to be spatially aware with our receiver. It's just stuck in there loose. That's a 410, okay? Now, if you decide you don't want the vector and you want to go to a 630, you can do AS3X and safe, but I'm going to tell you this right now. We don't have a particularly huge problem with the way this worked. It worked fine. But just remember, there ain't no rudder, people. So you're not going to get yaw authority, and that's why you notice a little bit more bumpiness on these thermally days with some wind, because the stabilizer is only allowed to correct this and this, but not this. Just keep that in mind, folks. It is a factor, and I still think that if you cut into this and you put a rudder and you wanted to get rid of the vector and just go straight AR 630, it has end pins and an internal antenna, but it would fit here nicely, okay? And you can have all the wires go in that direction. It should work out really nice. It's a little bit more expensive though.
If you wanted to keep the vector,
and you can have flaps too if you did the 630.
That's true. If you wanted to keep the vector, but you didn't want to have to mess, if you were nervous about the mixing, you could do a 620 and you would just skip channel 4 and put your mode on 5. And
and then you don't have that. But then you can also
mix.
add your inboard flaps because, of course, you're not going to be stabilizing your inboard flaps.
Right.
Now, if you do flaperons, you're probably going to have to jump up to something else because remember, we have redundant flight control surfaces, but because we have no yaw authority, you're going to really be pushing the limits of what these things can do. I would not suggest taking one of these wings out of service for the aileron control in terms of stabilization and auto leveling. They'll probably still work, but it's going to be to such a lesser degree that you're going to regret it, in my opinion. Plus, you don't really need the flaperons. And there is a yellow line that could potentially be used for thrust reverse if you had enough channels. But again, like you're a belly lander, you're not going to use thrust reverse here. You're going to go into the friction of the grass and it's just going to slide. And if you do thrust reverse while you're going down the grass, you know, your port is going to be more capable of sucking junk in here. These are up high, so you're going to have somewhat protection. It is behind the leading edge of the wing, but only by a little teeny bit. Sometimes you have an inlet down here, and those ones are the worst on belly landers because you can suck junk in there. Okay, so hopefully we've answered all your questions and probably a little bit more about how great this plane is very good. It is definitely worth considering if you're an expert pilot. You know, you're going to still like this. If you're a brand new pilot, you're going to really like it. But the thing is, you just need to remember when you're a brand new pilot, the consequence ratio is much higher, meaning that even though this looks easy for me to fly, you have less time to get out of trouble because you don't have the rudder, and you have less time to get out of trouble because when you run the higher powerful pack, which would be a 4S, then you're going to have a little bit more weight to fight. So that's why 3S works fine, but it just seems kind of tame on 3S. And I like being able to go out and just do some ups. And you saw it's still limited on ups, even on 4S, okay? So once you go to 3S, just think about that. You're really limited on ups. You're gonna go up like this, and it's gonna stall on you. And you'll have to correct, and you're like, oh crap, I don't know what to do. And you're more likely to lose your plane. Auto leveling does work still with the vector, but just keep in mind, auto leveling only works if you have enough airspeed to fly the plane.
And enough distance before the ground.
All true. And where we fly here, we have trees on either end. And so that does change the way we fly. So we fly out here. This is only like 2.5 acres of our property, which is 23 acres. When we dig our pond, we're going to have an even bigger place to fly that's all over our own property. We have permission to fly over here, but it's not our property. Mm-hmm. And flying over a field like that, it looks like a flat field, but it's not. It goes up and then it undulates down deep and undulates back up. And then over here, it's flat. So there's some air currents and things to keep in mind, but that's like another 50 acres there.
And you get a lot of weird heating off of the corn this time of year.
That's right. And if you crash into corn, it's crazy because corn will save planes' lives. And you would think it would destroy them. But I've had people, and I have myself, crashed planes that should have been totaled, and they'll be just sitting there like this. And it's like, how did that not break?
But they suck to find.
They do suck to find. It's terrible. All right, guys, that's all you get for this plane, unless you want to see the flights in the evening, which is super fun on 3S, which is as prescribed by the manufacturer. Also, if you want to help support Brian Phillips RC, as usual, buying from the links, that is the best way. Smash the like button, click the bell for notifications when subscribing so you get notified of the videos that we put out, somewhere between 2 on the low end and about 4 or 5 on the high end per week, guys. You're going to get content like crazy, and if you don't see what you already want to see, there's a good chance you need to go over to brianphillipsrc.com, which is our domain, our website, and you can check out by manufacturer, hobby shop, provider, and you can sort by type. And Megan, our camera crew, our wonderful camera crew, has been working hard on that for years to try to refine it, and it is a work in progress, so please be nice.
And I'm not a web designer.
But the truth is, if you want to find this particular plane and its peer competitors, that's a great place to do it. Because sometimes the playlists are set up for particular vendors, manufacturers, or makes. And I say the playlist for this plane will be for this plane, but we also put it into another playlist, which is going to be who sent it to us. So like in this case, that'd be Hobby Zone. okay? So check out Hobby Zone's playlist and you can see all the aircraft there. Or you can go over to Brian Phillips RC and you can see it there. And you can organize and include even more of the manufacturers that might have a similar size class. And if you guys see something you want to see in the website and you can't see it right now, you've got an idea, a vision that you could help us with that's really good, positive feedback, just leave it in the comments below. If you have questions, leave that in the comments below. And don't forget, there's more flight coming if you want to see it right now on this very video. So we hope you'll stay tuned and check it out. But guys, don't forget to smash the like button before you continue. If you're on your smart TV and you want to buy this plane and you're like, where do I find the link, Brian? I'm on a smart TV. Click on your history when you get on the computer. Just find your own icon, this little circle that looks like it's your face or whatever detail you've got there. Click on it. It'll bring you to your own. There should be like a history up on this side. So it'd be like over here for you. And just go to history and you'll see it right there. And then you can find this plane, watch the video again or whatever, and then go down to the section for the description. And it's right there. It's right at the top. We'll talk about what plane it is, what battery we suggest, which we'll suggest both 3S and 4S, and then what receiver we used. And then if you were going to take out the Vector, the receiver we'd use alternatively. Okay. So we know that's a question we get all the time and we try to answer it ahead of time. Sometimes we don't always catch it in time. And then if there's coupon codes available, you can check those on brianphillipsrc.com. We try to keep them as live as possible, but that means that we're depending on the vendors to actually provide those in a timely fashion. And sometimes they kind of suck at that. Yeah. Any other things?
That's,
also, super thanks, one-time gifts you can send. Still better to buy a plane, but super thanks are there. We also have members on YouTube. Again, buy the planes. It's even better. Not necessarily this one, but just a plane, a radio, a battery, and perpetuate the cycle of the ecosystem of Brian Phillips RC by doing that, or just become a member if you're outside of our area and maybe you're in Europe or you're in, Australia or New Zealand and you can't follow the links because it's cost prohibitive. That's fine. We get it. We also have Patreon, which would be monthly, and then PayPal if you just want to do a one-time donation. Just remember, we're friends and family who wants to line their pockets. So that being said, guys, that's all we got for you, except for the flights that are coming right now. Stay tuned. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this L-39. Amazing new product from Arrows. Absolutely gorgeous looking plane. We outfit ours with the stickers of our choice. You can put whatever you want. It comes with like 5 different countries worth. We had to look stuff up. We didn't know which one we wanted. This was the highest contrast, 50 millimeter EDF inside of here. Beautiful, realistic looking inlets. Relatively easy build. Quite a few steps because it's a 4-channel receiver. We're running this, that's right, you heard it first, the AR410. Now you could run a 620 if you want to run the reverse thrust, but this being totally absent landing gear, not even fixed gear, there's really not any advantage to thrust reverse in my opinion. But if you want it, you can go to the 620 and it's very easy to mix that in. Just watch one of our videos. We have a 5-minute timer set. Throttle cuts off. We do have a voltage alarm. Smart 3S 1300 centered right on the tray. Gets us right to the center of gravity. We are nose heavy on the back and tail heavy on the front, which means we're perfect in the center or somewhere in there. Beautiful sunset. We're going to launch this way, but I am going to walk back just in case I have a failed launch. This has auto leveling. I'll go ahead and turn it on for my initial maiden launch. Everything should be working great, but if it's not, that'll give me the best chance, and I'm gonna launch in and over the tall grass to catch it. Throttle cuts off, full throttle. Oh yeah. Okay, so we got a beepage. I'm in auto leveling. I'm just gonna let the beeping relax. Out of auto leveling. Need a little bit of trim because I'm having to ride the elevator. There we go. Flying rock solid, just other than that trim, I had to give about 15% up on the trim. Man, that looks so good. Yeah, that was. It's effortless, guys. Vector stabilizer inside of here, like what we're used to. That's 50% throttle, folks. Okay, now full throttle. Whoa, got into a high-speed stall there. Not enough airspeed to do what I wanted, which was to pull up. No rudder on this plane. So don't use the rudder because it doesn't exist. Definitely feel like this plane could use a little bit more pep in its step, but it is really rock solid. I'm noticing a lot of climb when I get into the throttle, out of the throttle, giving the battery a break. Could just be a little bit of a trim issue. Maybe I overshot on the trim. Yeah, I think we're good. Beautiful. A little bit unclean on the roll there because you get into a little bit of a stall. But man, that looks so dang good. I am loving the performance of this thing. It flies literally on rails, folks. Blends into the trees a lot too. Okay, now, if you guys are new to the channel and you don't know what we do here, we fly these planes, we review them, we bring out all sorts of flaws that we notice, and hopefully all the good stuff too. But the truth is, this thing is flying very good. And boy, it is fun to fly. Don't know what type of time we're gonna get. We do have a voltage alarm. You heard it chirping early on in the launch. Not unusual to have a smart battery do that because it will self-regulate and balance. So if you have one cell that's a little bit saggy, after launching, it may kind of relax into its perfect, comfortable, happy place. It's actually kind of quiet for an EDF. Love the colors, but I don't love them when I drop below the tree line because it sort of disappears on me. Granted, it is relatively dark. One shot on my right, please. All the way over to the bowl. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna fly. Whoa, did you see that turbulence there that I hit? Perfect, right there. We're gonna try to fly here and just give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. Flying up at the top of the trees, referenced from the camera crew's point of view, you'll notice it's quite easy to see. But then as soon as the trees drop the backdrop, my brain is like, where is it? Where is it? That's 100% throttle. Feels saggy on 3S. There's our alarm. Out of throttle. Relaxing my throttle, just giving it a chance to recover. Feels like it is eager for 4S. Just based on the way it's performing now, it reminds me of the other Aeros offerings that were supposed to fly on 3S, and we ultimately put 4S to them, and they were fine. Also, the ESC is dinky on this plane. We do show it in the unbox build radio setup. It's located under the wing. It is accessible with the wing off, 4 screws, very easy. You do have to glue the tail. And also, I am paying attention. I have a 1-minute warning just went off, and I'm feeling like I'm at 50% throttle, and it's so dang quiet that it makes me feel like I don't have that much to get out of the hole if I would get into trouble. But goodness gracious, it is absolutely fabulous looking. And by the way, I gotta say, it's gonna slow down great for landings. I'm not even worried, but I'm gonna just do a quick pass right here. 50% pass there. We haven't done a lot of high speed moves because it just isn't like, there's our alarm. It's not blazing fast. You guys hear how the pitch changes on that a little bit? I think I'm gonna land.
Okay.
That's our timer at 5 minutes.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, just taking it nice and easy and not pushing it at all, guys. That thing lands beautifully, just like the Viper, just like the T-33. It's really well balanced, right in the center. I'm gonna put an Aeros pack in there and see how we perform. That's only a 25C pack, and we're gonna fly, so stay tuned. We're gonna pause and do that right now. All right, so we have an Aeros pack here. We actually flew first on a smart pack because that's incidentally what we were using for our radio setup. Camera crew is gonna hold that for me. And as you can see, we're at 10.7 volts. So we really did run that down 3.54. Yeah, but it's actually reasonable in that it kept flying. You also notice that we have an IC3 plugged into the XT60. That's not unusual. It is a little bit harder to plug in. So I'm gonna loosen this pack. I am gonna slide it out, and I am gonna use It's not hot. Let's slide this back in. Okay, camera crew is gonna try to empty her hands and help me. See, this is one of the things I run into when I do planes that don't have landing gear, is there's like no good way to lay it down. And so sometimes it's challenging, especially with an auto leveling plane that's got a vector that needs to initiate. Waiting for the dances. Come on. You got it in you? You got it. Come on. We haven't seen the dance yet. I'm probably bouncing around too much here, guys.
Took a long time inside.
Well, that's because we had it at possibly an off angle. So I'm just gonna let it sit here and think for a minute while I get this plugged in. Now, if you guys are brand new to the channel, what we do is we unbox these, we build them, we radio set them up, and we give you guys a basis for comparison between plane and other plane. I'm actually gonna lay this down just so it can initiate, because it probably just isn't holding still enough. There it goes. Okay, you see what I did? And you see how it stopped flashing, guys? That's what you want. Now I can also take and use my thumb to push that down, and then in turn, hold my battery in position. The XT60 to XT60 is kind of nice for getting that in there, and it's kind of centered on the strap. Let's check our CG again, because this is a different size battery. You can see my markings. Going to the backside hole, nose heavy. Going to the front side hole, tail heavy. And these hand grips are perfect, folks. It really works well. And I am gonna say this, camera crew's gonna hold the plane for just a minute. Very easy to hold, very easy to throw. But as with other planes with no landing gear, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Now, you don't have to launch this in auto leveling, but now that I have auto leveling and my elevator adjusted, I'm gonna go ahead and try a second launch technique, which is above, like this, okay? So, timer has been cleared to 5 minutes. Throttle cuts off. I'm gonna launch it hard and over the grass.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go full throttle here, folks. I'll just go this way. You guys see how it wanted to stall? Okay. It wasn't bad. There's auto leveling. 50% throttle, it's just kind of holding that position. So it actually works really fine. Okay, going into off. Gosh, even with it off, it's just rock solid, because it is pretty calm right now. Full throttle, this is a 25C pack. 25C is pretty weak in general. Okay, that's about as fast as you're gonna get for roll rate. Okay, now AS3X like stabilization. Okay, coming around, we're gonna go race the car. Because he's braking so he can see the plane. And then up. Hey, it's doing really good at the peaks. That's nice, guys. Feeling pretty good. So maybe that battery is a little bit further forward, or maybe it's just not been used more than 2 times. I'm thinking it's probably the latter. Okay, so now rolling with both rudder and aileron controls, and you're like, wait, you don't have a rudder, Brian. How did you roll with a rudder? Well, I've just mixed in controls. That doesn't mean I actually have a rudder. So I gotta say, this thing flies really nice, folks. If you're thinking about getting a plane that's relatively inexpensive, very fun to fly, and looks absolutely fantastic doing it, this is the plane for you. Now, I do wanna warn you, the setup is a little bit different because this is a 4-channel configuration. So we have throttle, elevator, and rudder. Nope, elevator and ailerons. And guess what? You said 4, Brian, that's only 3. Yep, we have mode too. And mode is optional, but it's gonna be locked in whatever mode it is. And so my suggestion is you go ahead and use at least a 4-channel. And by the way, where are you gonna find a 3-channel, folks?
Does that exist?
Look at that thing disappear when it hits those dark trees though. Oh man, it looks so good. I do feel like this thing could probably handle a 4S, and it would be quite the speed demon. Trying some upside down flight performance. Definitely have to ride the stick pretty hard, and I feel like you're gonna get yourself in a situation where it is going to be tending to stall out from under you. Let's go over by the edge. Megan. That's full speed pass, full speed pass, or full throttle pass more specifically. I'm just gonna do a few more passes because this is like feeling so good. So if you guys haven't ever had an Arrows product, this is an Arrows product. It's a brand new release, L-39. I've had a few L-39s, well, not a few, a couple L-39s. Very happy to be adding this to the list of other planes we've reviewed in the past, and I think it's amazing. Yes, it is absent inboard flaps, LEDs, and even a rudder, as well as landing gear, but I am okay with that. That is totally a bat. You see that? That is totally a bat. Holy cow, that's crazy. Another bat. Are you kidding me? What the heck? What the heck? That's a bird. Wow, that is so nutty. We don't hardly ever see bats up here. They must like this thing. No, seriously, they're right there.
Yeah.
Or wait, hold on. I feel like I might be lying. That is not a bat there.
Nope, that was a barn swallow.
That's a barn swallow. That's a barn swallow. Oh man, look at the outline though.
Yeah.
So folks, if you're new to the channel, like I keep saying, we hope we can get you here and get you flying as soon as possible. If you're wanting to learn to fly, we're here to help. We're gonna try to enable you by giving you all the information you need to make your basic decisions and make the right ones. This is probably still not a beginner plane. It's an early plane if you want it to be. This is our timer countdown. We haven't heard a chirp of alarm, which tells me that we might be a little bit soft on that first smart battery, which would be a bummer. And partially a little bit shorter on flight times because we did do our full radio setup. And then we just kind of like came straight outside. So you guys notice that it's got such a reasonably low speed that even in the rolls, you're gonna have to be strategic about your elevator position. There's a beep. Camera crew is where she needs to be.
Okay.
It's still fine. I'm gonna be able to get it back, but I'm just gonna bring it in a little bit more conservative because this isn't a smart battery. Okay, out of the throttle, just gliding along. Woo! 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 Boy, that did not get very far. I thought it was gonna glide all the way over here, but
Was it dead?
no.
Oh.
I just was out of the throttle. So, a couple things about this plane. If you're a brand new pilot, can you handle the L-39? The answer would be probably, but I do need to warn you about this plane. It's not a bad flying plane. It flies very good, in fact. And I'm not just saying that because we want you to buy them from the links in the video description, but we do want you to buy them from the links in the video description because that's how you can support our channel financially and also win by getting amazing planes. This might not be for you if you're a brand new pilot because of this. When you get out of throttle, it's like coming down now. It's not an overly heavy plane. It doesn't fly heavy, but it also isn't like super fast on 3S. I think really what we probably need to do is we probably need to put a 4S in this thing and see just how well it doesn't catch on fire. But the truth is, I know it's not designed for it. Yeah, about 3.5 volts, okay? But all I can say is I love the way the plane looks. I love the way the plane flies, but goodness gracious, this black just disappears. Kind of wish that black was a lighter color because it would help when you go up against a dark backdrop like what we have here. Now, on a bright day, it's gonna be no problemo. And I don't ever wanna complain about silver planes because I love the way they look, but I'm gonna just tell you this more as a matter of fact point, is that the black is very dark. The blue is also very dark, although I like the blue. Blue and black blend with backdrop, okay? Look at those dark trees over there. Just, again, time of day, considerations of where the sun is and the fact that we have low-level clouds over the horizon are gonna impact that without any doubt. But that doesn't change the fact that it is capable of happening to you too. Now, there's totally absent LEDs, but it's fine. This price point's pretty low to expect or demand LEDs. But what I will say is that it would be nice to see LEDs on a plane like this because it is a great twilight flyer in that you come home from a long day, you got a beautiful sunset. I just want to grab something and go and really enjoy it. And this is the type of plane that is going to give you that exact experience. Now, it doesn't mean that it needs anything to make it fly well, but I'm going to tell you this thing stalls hard. And when you do, and it could be maybe I need to bring that CG, you know, toward the front a little bit more, and that would be fine because it's very easy to do by sliding that battery forward. And I think that might help a little bit with the overstability, but it might also mean that the elevator gets undermined. I actually felt like I had plenty of elevator because I could get it into a high-speed stall. On a number of occasions, I did it on these 2 flights. Now, does that mean this thing is a bad plane? Absolutely it does not. This is a great plane. It flies amazing. It looks good. It went together relatively easy. And it's inexpensive because you're only having to throw a 4-channel transmitter and a receiver in there. Now, granted, I am using an NX10, so let's talk about that for a minute. The NX10 has been great for us. We have like 172 models in here now. Not that every model has been connected to this. It's just because I kept upgrading from 6 to 8 to 10. And I'm going to tell you this right now. You get a 6 and you can do this all day long. But I'm still going to recommend that you get an NX10 if you think you're headed that direction. Because then you're not chasing good money after bad, and that's not what we do here. Brian Phillips RC is all about getting you guys into the hobby, getting you the best possible outcome for the same amount of effort or money. And the way we can do that is showing you how to save $600 or $700 or $800 on the way to this transmitter that you know you're going to end up with anyway. So you might as well start there. Now, if you go to the NX20 or something like that, you can go way beyond where we are. Or the iX14 or iX20 or whatever it is you come, iX12, I think they sort of discontinued that. But if you want an iX12, you can buy them used, I think still. And by the way, when you follow our links, we still get credit for all that stuff. And it still helps to build, you know, our prowess within the community because then they say, hey, they talked about it and then this guy figured out it existed. So he went and bought one. Okay, well, let's work with those people. When I say work with those people, I mean, we are involved in helping to bring these to market. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to not point out problems we've had with this. But what it does mean is we are going to be able to share it because we have shared a lot of different items. And by the way, size, it's very manageable. Strong, resilient. Let's show you the damage from these 2 flights. I mean, belly landers do tend to get a little bit beat up. But as you can see, just a little bit of a mar there, and it's just kind of like junk on it. But otherwise, it didn't even get marred, which is great. Granted, I had reasonably good landings, although this one came in a lot quicker than I thought, and this is a rough patch right here. Up there, it was easy, and it kind of did its normal, like, slide to the side sort of thing. Complaints about this model would be, A, the black is really dark. Now, it looks great, and I have no problem with it being black like that because it's dark. It looks great. The problem is, if you do tend to fly at this time of night, you may need to invest a little bit in some spray paint and go from, you know, black to like bright white or something so that it would be still kind of a cool livery, but then you get that high contrast that you desire up against a dark backdrop like that. Now, the other thing you could do is you could throw some LEDs on there, but again, these things aren't included and it doesn't come out of the box that way. So there's nothing wrong with having an idea, but we aren't saying that's the way it comes out of the box either. Remember, here on Brian Phillips RC, we don't do the fastest, bestest, cheapest, bluest, greenest. That's a bunch of BS. It just wastes your time and insults your intelligence. This is a great plane. I think you're going to like it. If you want one, get one from the links. You won't be disappointed. Now, also, I just want to talk about this. I strongly believe that you could stick a 2200 4S inside this cavity, but I am a little bit unsure if you can get the CG to work out. So we hope to test that in the very near future, and we have done it with virtually every Arrows that we've tested that comes in these small configurations. But I'm going to tell you, the ESC is like the size of my ring finger or middle finger, okay?
Pretty small.
It's like this big, and it's very thin and skinny. But guess what it says on there? 2 through 4S LiPo. That does not mean that we're gonna have a motor that is rated for it. And we did use some pretty small wires for our XT60 connection, because I think they're like 14 or 16 gauge wires. They're pretty small, and you can see that right there. Yeah, they're pretty small. So even this 25C pack has bigger gauge. This would be like, I don't know, is that 10? 14. This is probably 16, okay? So that's where you can usually get your telltale signs for what an ESC can handle before it melts. Or the soldered connection melts and then you lose control totally, like right now. Okay, so just some thoughts. Amazing plane. Love that it comes with a vector, which holds down the cost of your receiver, but that's a double-edged sword because I feel like if you put in a 630, you could get so much out of this. And yes, I believe there is thrust reverse on here because we have the customary yellow cable back there on the ESC, which you'll see in the Unbox Build radio setup, but I have it tucked back now. That yellow wire would go into the signal lead of another channel on your transmitter. In our case, we only have 4 channels, so we don't have any spares. Also, if you want some inboard flaps, this thing could totally be cut to accommodate inboard flaps. And I think it would be a far preferable experience to simply setting up flaperons, which again, you could accomplish without giving up auto leveling or stabilization with an AR630. AR630 is considerably more expensive. 637T would give you full telemetry, full range telemetry, but it's kind of big and pretty expensive for what this application ensues. We have a manned aircraft up here trying to see what it is. Sounds like a helicopter, but it's an airplane. Oh,
there is a helicopter.
There is a helicopter, and that looks like a Chinook.
A Chinook.
Holy crap, we got a Chinook and an airplane. Here, I'll take the transmitter. So guys, we always take a minute to look at manned aircraft because after all, when you fly in Class G airspace and you're trying to be above board, you want to be careful. One of the biggest responsibility points within the RC, we hope you guys can hear that, is you need to yield to manned aircraft. If you're flying that far away, you did something wrong already, okay? Yeah. Just to be clear, but that's still cool.
Because I'm way zoomed in.
Oh yeah, I could totally hear that. And I'm like, why does that little engine sound like it's, it sounds like it's braking. And then we have some good chemtrails over here.
Oh yeah.
So guys, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to fly responsibly. And yes, that does mean sometimes we have to fly different sites. We have to do it during different times. That's just part of the beast. But I gotta say, if you guys love flying, we're in one of the freest countries in the world, even though we have some major idiots in charge. And you have to be careful about that because if you aren't already hounding your representatives, then shame on you. Because we're about to get remote ID, which is a gigantic monstrosity. And we want to end it as quick as possible. So sometimes a little bit of pain and suffering on their part will allow us to come out the other end and say, we told you so, you morons. 50,000 of us complained about it and you didn't listen to one of them. Sorry, I try not to get off on tangents, but the truth is it's coming. You need to be prepared. If we have to put a module on these things to be fully legal or get FRIA status, so be it. Life happens. It's not the end of the world. But just remember, we're the type of people that we would be made an example of, so we need to be nice and careful and pretend that everything is fine and it's not a big deal, but we try not to totally patronize you with our upset feelings about the way remote ID is probably coming down the pike. Now, am I gonna stop flying? Ha ha ha, ho, buddy. No, and neither are you. But the thing is, we may have to accommodate some, and it's probably not the end of the world because the idiots in charge can't even enforce it anyway. So let's just be good boys and girls and do what we're told when they're watching. And guys, this is an awesome plane. So make sure you're watching yourself fly it ASAP right now. Check it. Links in the video, in the description below. We hope that you guys will get one and really enjoy it because this is a sweet plane. We haven't seen anything from Arrows that's new for a while, and we are super excited to be bringing you one of the first and also one of the luckiest. So thanks. We're lucky because you guys are here supporting us, and we're first because we work our tails off. If that wasn't already clear, the camera crew, one of the best in the industry, is here supporting me, and so we want to thank her right now. So make sure you leave that in your comments below. And if you want to super thanks us, we have that as well. Or become a member through YouTube or a member on Patreon. Either one doesn't really matter to us which one you prefer, but we do try to give a little bit preferential treatment on comments, mostly because the platform gives us easier access to them. And so if you go to Patreon and you sign up for monthly support, then I'll see your comments and basically reply a little bit quicker. Not to let anybody off the hook that makes normal comments. We do go through those. We do see them. We just don't get to them as quick as we'd like. And we used to do it so religiously, but it was like we ran out of time as we started doing more production. And that's where we are. So we appreciate you guys. We do see your comments. We do know that you're with us. And if you have questions, leave them down there. We'll try our best to help you. And also, if you guys are wondering how the NX10 is working, because I know you guys are wondering, it's been working great. I have never once used the sliders because I haven't needed to, but there's been a couple applications where it might have worked. We just don't need it yet. So we will eventually. Also, 410 is fine in this. 620 is gonna give you a little more flexibility. And it's gonna take up about the same real estate, if not a little bit less, because it's less long. If you go full on AS3X and safe, we're gonna probably say the 630 on this. So we'll link to those things below. And honestly, I think 4S is probably where we're gonna end up on this, but we're out of light. So we'll do that on a second thoughts for you like we're used to here on Brian Phillips RC. If you don't know what that means, check the playlist. We probably already have it filmed if this isn't just releasing today. And you can check out literally thousands of other videos sorted by manufacturer, hobby shop, whatever our relationship is, or sorted by type. And that's on BrianPhillipsRC.com. That's with an I, B-R-I-A-N, PhillipsRC.com. Check it out today. And also, if you want to support us by buying different planes, because this is like, hey, that wets my whistle, but maybe not for me yet. Maybe I want the Viper jet from Arrows. We have links to that, and it'll be sorted by brand, maker, model there. So you can go over there and see that, and you'll see all the ones we've done for Arrows. Okay.
And if you're looking for coupon codes, if they're available, they're at BrianPhillipsRC.com.
If and when, and we try our best to scrub coupon codes that don't work anymore, because they do age out, and we don't always get notification from people on that. So we try our best, but if you're trying to save a buck or two, go over to BrianPhillipsRC.com and find 17 planes you need.
Yeah, and then hopefully there's a coupon code for it.
That's right. So anyway, guys, that's all we got for you tonight. Thanks so much for being part of our community here on Brian Phillips RC. We know you'll be back for more, and we do have so much content. It's kind of crazy. I don't know how we squeeze it all in.
I don't either.
But we do. Thanks for watching. Come back for more.